Good afternoon. I am Pastor Smith of the Joseph Project. As many of you know, a faith-based initiative co-founded by myself along with U.S. Senator Ron Johnson. We want to thank our panelists for being with us. Let's give them a round of applause. We're going to ask that you would briefly introduce yourselves and what you do and how you do it.
Thank you. I'm Todd Roller, the Talent Acquisition Manager with Stoughton Trailers. Stoughton Trailers headquartered in Stoughton, Wisconsin, and we are the largest employer in Stoughton, and as well as Evansville, where another facility is located, and the same with Broadhead. Our largest cluster of employees are right here in South Central Wisconsin. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here today and talk about some of the programs we're working on.
Excellent. Ruben?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. My name is Reuben Gowen. I am the founder of Taking Chance Wisconsin, where my company motto is that I can, doesn't assist. It is an excuse we tell ourselves to not reach our true potential, and I often tell people to bet on themselves. I also just became the CEO of Leverage Staffing, where we believe that human capital is the best capital, and we aim to assist in people, one of the programs, to find sustainable employment, to re-enter back into society.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie De Jesus. I've spent 11 years incarcerated. I've been out 3.5 years now, just about. I was in the first CNC mobile boot camp trailer that was placed at Racine Correctional Institution in 2015. I graduated top of my class. When I came home, I saw some more CNC training through ResCare. After that, that training led to me becoming a manufacturing skills standard instructor for certified production technician. I currently work for Innovative Educational Solutions as a private contractor, and we are a community-based organization for MATC, and my class is pre-apprenticeship certified.
My name is Ed Hennings. I have a couple businesses. I have the Hair Code, Barbershop Beauty Salon, and I have Vision Universal Trucking. I'm also a motivational speaker in the city of Milwaukee, and recently I've just penned a book called The Answers. I was released from prison after doing 20 years, October 18th, 2016, and these things that I just told you about I accomplished within the last 3 years, and I thank you guys for having me today.
Amen. Let's have a simple, candid conversation here. As we know, the Wisconsin Department of Correction offers a very unique program within there on training. And it gives these guys special training like welding, carpentry, masonry, barber, and cosmetology. Could you see anything, a way that could help, or how that could help people re-enter into the workforce?
Yes, I'll start. So the training programs that are offered are fantastic because part of the reintegration is having the skills, and it's a great connection piece to the universities and organizations that provide the training and help supply a skilled workforce to us. Thank you.
It's wonderful. It is a great thing that they provide to assist the people to be able to get trained and skilled when they come out or re-enter into society. But the whole aspect on that, the downfall is that, as we know, I believe DWD just put 3 job centers of Wisconsin lobbies to only 3 prisons. Mm-hmm. And the population in Wisconsin, we have over 23 incarcerated people. So if you only have 3 job centers to integrate these people and have them apply for jobs, you still leave. If you do 1,000 per prison, you still have 20,000 people that are not trained to be able to come out into society and be able to search for jobs. So it does us no good if we're training them in there, but when they come outside, we're not supplying the proper pipeline to introduce them into society, how to do job search, how to do resume writing, how to do interviewing skills. So I thought it was great that we got all this training going inside incarceration because it gives us something to come out with. But when we come outside, there's really nothing out here that, when I came out of incarceration 33 months ago, I was pretty much told, there you go. So coming out here to going in to go with a wife and 5 kids to support, it was more like, well, where do I go from? I was fortunate enough that I had my military background and my prior employment with DOD that I knew how to do job skills, I knew how to search for jobs, but everybody doesn't have all that aspect. So we need to also be introducing to every prison how to train people when they come out here and give them a pipeline to have sustainable employment. When they come out here, you're told, here you go get any job, any kind of job. So a lot of times we come out here looking for any kind of job, which a lot of agencies out there are paying $8 or $9 an hour. $8 or $9 an hour, that's not sustainable employment.
What'd you say?
So, am I right? I mean, my 16-year-old that works in Taco Bell makes $9.50 an hour. So now you expect a grown adult to come out here who has a significant other dependents, to make a sustainable living with that and pay bills? It's not going to happen.
All right.
I think to address this question, there's two facets you have to look at. You have to look at the medium and maximum security prisons that are offering these training vocational programs, and then you have to look at the minimum security prisons which are offering these training programs. And for the mediums, I think for the companies out there that need these type of trades, I urge you to reach out to your nearest facility. I know Moraine Park Technical College takes care of Fox Lake as well as Kettle Moraine, and go see if you can get access to go into there to network with the prisoners that are in there, and then when they get out, that might be a facet to be able to network for them to gain employment. To go off of what Ruben was saying also is some type of digital literacy. They need some type of training when we come home. It was hard to navigate cell phone when I came home 3 years ago. Felt like every time I touched the phone, it was gonna do something crazy, you know?
Still.
When I went back, we had the simple flip phones and beepers hit me on the hip, you know? So it's just a culture change, culture shock. So there are intellectuals in prison. I would like you guys to know that. I think we are some examples of that right now, and there's many more that are coming home. So a lot of us need is just a chance to not go back.
Brother Edward?
I took barber and cosmetology while I was in prison. I mentioned to you that I own my own barber and beauty salon now. So I was able to take that training and move forward with it upon my release. But I know from being in there for so long, a lot of programs is just the introduction into just, let's say, carpentry. You're not a journeyman carpenter when you come home. You just maybe scratch the surface of what true carpentry is. So when a lot of guys that I know that came home thought they were in position from taking welding and taking carpentry that they was gonna walk into a journeyman type job. And they were really far from that. A lot of it wasn't being acknowledged the way we thought it was gonna be acknowledged. So to have the conversation and have the network built with people coming out of prison to know that whatever they take, that it will be acceptable in the workforce. But more importantly, from my standpoint, I think that barber and cosmetology helped me out a whole lot to have a way to make a living upon my release. But also what helped me was the work I did with inside of myself. I think building up the person will help a lot and will coincide with a trade or some type of skill, because the person has to take advantage of that. And if we dealing with people that's defeated, we dealing with people that might not feel up to par, and we might get them a skill, but they still have this feeling of being less than and not being capable. So if you put some value and some pride in somebody that's in this situation, they might be able to take a barber cosmetology degree and run with it. Whereas a person that's defeated, they still gonna have that cosmetology degree and not do nothing with it. And we all know people that's in that situation.
Brother Edward, I think that was powerful. I would like to twist this thing just a little bit, if I may. I know we ask a lot of questions about what happens when they are released, what happens when they re-enter into society. I want to flip the script a little bit and start with you and come back this way. What happens if just maybe we did something more creative, like start working with them and giving them jobs while they're currently incarcerated? How would you see that?
I think it would make a huge difference to give somebody something to grasp onto when they have nothing. It really raised the morale, so to speak. I know what it did for me, so I'm gonna speak for my experience. I know taking barber cosmetology was the first thing in my life that I started and I finished. I've started a lot of things in my life, but I never finished anything. But that was the first thing that I started, and I finished. And once I finished it, a light bulb went on. And I said, wow, I waited all these years to finish something, and I take on challenge after challenge after challenge because of that one experience. So when you do open up the door for somebody to have something to hold on to, because we grasping for everything when we in there. We grasping for letters, we grasping for phone calls, we grasping for visits. We trying to hold on to something. So to give them or give us something to hold on to at that point, it gives us some type of hope. It would give some hope.
All right.
The biggest hurdle for that is for the inmates to be able to make it to minimum to get that opportunity to get work release.
Okay.
There's a lot of hurdles and barriers that programming, certain type of classifications that you have to meet before you get there. I made work release a year and a half after I finished top of my class in the CNC boot camp trailer. And I met Ed, started in transitional facility. I finally obtained my work release privileges after petitioning Madison to override a certain program that they said I needed because RCI didn't have it, and it didn't make them any sense for them to send me to another institution where I only had 9 months left at the time to be able to get to that status to be able to obtain my work release. And once I got there, I was able to work for 90 days before I came home. And then I was in Stoughton, I released to Milwaukee, and I was working in Racine. So that introduced a whole nother hurdle to me after I came home, was the commute. But if you can figure out a way to do it, Pastor, I think you should do it.
What you say?
I'm with Jamie and Ed on that. I started in the medium high, and I ended up working my way down towards satellite low, and then eventually camp, where I was allowed to actually go out and work at an assistant mechanic garage. But just that whole aspect, like I said, that you're able to accomplish that and know that, oh, I'm out here now. I'm able to do something. I'm able to pick up the trays. I'm able to see what's going on. Give me that self-boost to continue to pursue and know that when I come out back into society that, you know what, I want to be a case manager. I want to go out there and help people and let them know that it is possible, that you're able to make it as long as you bet on yourself and don't allow that stigma that society puts on yourself that you're a felon. I don't even use that word no more. That I tell people we're justice involved people. 1 out of 3 people has some kind of involvement with the justice, or you're either directly or indirectly affected by it. The other 2 probably just haven't gotten caught. So, or they either know someone that's been involved. So if you're able to start working with these individuals from when they're incarcerated to integrate back into society and give the opportunity, not only because the job skills and that they're able to pick up, but the money that they're able to save. We all know that modern slave slavery is imprisonment jobs. We make not even $1, if that, sometimes when you're incarcerated, while everybody else is making good money, we're not even making that. So if you're able to start saving money while you're incarcerated, you're able to integrate into society, come out, be more productive because you had those skills from in prison already. So if you're able to make that happen, Pastor, let me know where I need to sign that petition so I can help you get it going.
Amen. Brother Todd.
All right. The proximity, I think, is extremely important. We've been running a successful program for several years with Thompson Correctional and Oregon Correctional. The retention rate of the pool of candidates from those 2 facilities over 2 years is great. However, once they complete the program and go back to the community where they're forced to go back to, I believe we've only successfully brought 2 back in several years. So they end up staying they don't get to stay in the community where they have, a job, where they've built some relationships at work, etc. So they don't have the opportunity to extend into the community where they're working and making a decent wage. So it'd be nice to change some of that in the future.
Awesome. With that being said, so it sounds like you got employers out here that's willing to take employees on when they get released. They're working with them while they're incarcerated. But then when they get released, they go back to their communities and they don't have the wherewithal to come back to that location to work. they don't live in that community, and 9 times out of 10, what I'm hearing is that sometimes the law won't allow them to relocate to that community. How do you think we should take a look at that?
Excuse me. So I'm not sure if policy, I guess, in terms of the program, needs to be changed. But I know things we're working on. We've 2 pools of candidates that have. If you look at the employees we've hired in the last 2 years, let's say, there's 2 pools of candidates that have the highest retention. It's the candidates and employees from the correctional facilities, and then another group that we've also brought in, that we've been working with for a couple of years now from Puerto Rico. And 2 of the constants, the best I can see, are the housing component and the transportation. So once either one of these groups finishes the program and then has the opportunity to integrate into the society, that's where we've got a huge disconnect. They're used to, the structure and consistency of the transportation, the housing's all set up, and we've been trying to extend some of our programs to help with housing, whether it's a subsidy or help with transportation, but we keep finding we have to do more and more to help that critical juncture, that transition point. So when they come out of the correctional facility, we've got one working with us now for almost 2 years. We've already started working on next steps with him to try to keep him in our community, so there's just a lot more that has to be done, and we're working on it.
I'm real big on that. As a justice involved person, if you've already established yourself and have everything set up for you on one community, that you even have an employer that's already paying you with sustainable employment for you to be successful, but your PO is telling you, my PO probation officer is telling you you need to go back to another county where you actually initially caught your case, I'm against that, because how are we helping this individual if he's already have sustainable employment? And sometimes the county that you're sent back to might be about 45 minutes away from where you were before. So now you're dealing with the whole transportation issue, like he addressed, that it's like that becomes a whole issue now. Now you're looking, if you don't have no relatives living in that county any longer, because some of us are gone for years. So we might have to go to a place where none of our family members are there at all. So you're like, okay, now who do I look for? What do I do now? When you're losing all sorts of aspects of help or assistance that you had where you were already established. So I think we need to find a way that policy needs to let these people come out of incarceration, integrate to where, especially if they already have something stable and going, don't come out and ruin that for them. Let them stay where they're at so they could continue to be productive and advance in their careers and their lives.
So you feel like there should be some policy changes?
Indeed, they should.
All right. Brother Jamie?
I believe the same thing. The same thing happened to me. Like I said, I was working in release from Sturdivant. I was working in Racine, but living in Milwaukee. And I had to make that commute. Sometimes a 45-minute commute, depending on the wintertime. You want to leave an extra hour early because you want to make it to work on time. In a lot of manufacturing businesses, you want your weekly bonus for being to work on time, right? So if we can keep them in the same communities for those who choose to stay, I think there need to be some policy changes that need to be taking effect so that these young men and women can get their life together, maybe in a different set of surroundings. Sometimes people need different circumstances to be successful. Changing the people, places, and things are something that we talk about a lot.
Yes.
We were just talking about that backstage. I had to go from one side of town to the other side of town to make sure I didn't fall back into the same pool that I was in before I came home. So I guess that's up to the inmate or the justice-involved person.
We call that changing your playmates and changing your playground.
Right.
Indeed.
Brother Edward?
That you can change the game.
What I've seen personally is a guys might be on work release in prison for maybe a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. And they have a steady job, very steady job. And They really excited about the prospects of leaving prison and holding on to that job. And then right when it's time for them to go, they get a letter that say they have to go back to Milwaukee, Racine, the job might be in Oshkosh, the job might be in Sheboygan, and stuff like that. And it kind of breaks them down because the future looked pretty bright for a year or two. Man, I have a great job. I have somewhere to go and work every day, man, and I don't have to go back to the madness that was, per se, my hometown at first. I know it's a delicate balance in this because we're always trying to protect the community as well. But I have seen the response to a person that's building a rapport with a manager or a supervisor at a factory, and they're doing really good, and man, they love him at the job, and it's just like a whole new life for him. And then one day they get that letter, and it's like being incarcerated all over again. And, you know, I'm there saying, fight, man, because I was fortunate enough to be from Milwaukee. I took barber cosmetology, like I said, and I got a job in a barbershop. And I walked right into that barbershop when I got out, and it would work wonders for me. I built a rapport with the other barbers and the guy that owned the shop. I learned so much from him. A year after my release, I opened my own shop, but it was due to my chair being one chair from him, and I was listening to everything he was saying about business and about life. And I applied all of that to me, and a year later, I opened my own shop. So when somebody is in that situation where they can walk out and learn from somebody like myself or you guys, and they there and they working for you, and let me tell you, it's just no joy in the world like seeing a guy going to work every day. He running out of there. And when he have an off day, he don't even want to be there. He want to be at work. So when that's the rug is pulled from under him, so to speak, that's crushing. So once again, I know it's a delicate balance, and I know, you know, everybody have a job to do, but that's just something to consider as we continue to try to help and make this thing a little more smoother transition.
All right. We've seen some lawmakers pass some bills that make it a little bit easier for expungement on some criminal records. Are there any other things that you see that lawmakers need to look at to try to make this different and change this expungement situation and make it better in our community?
Definitely. Just what you guys are doing today. You're not sitting back and trying to read about it, not trying to conjure up certain visions in your mind and run with it. You're talking to the voice. You're talking to the people that have been there, that have felt that pain and done transitioned back successfully. I was asked before, could you pour whatever in you inside a cup and we can let everybody else coming out drink it? And I said, well, in actuality, I can't do it, but I'll do everything I can to try to help with that. And I think statewide, different organizations, there's different agencies, should have somebody like us on their staff because we can, per se, mentor. I know it's not cute to be holding a 40, 30, 50-year-old man's hand, but we got to meet these people where they at. You have to meet us where we are, and it's sad to say that, okay, I'm 40 and I need somebody to hold my hand. I've never been in this situation before, but you like, he's in the same situation as my 15-year-old. Hey, that's what it is. So we have to meet them where they at, and statewide, we probably need to employ and interact agencies that have people that have walked that walk and be able to speak the language because we're dealing with people that's already hard as it is. So once they shut down, it's going to be hard to get them, you know, to open back up. And sometimes we have our own tactics and we have our own views on things, but we need to open it up, like I said, statewide and have some policies or something in the works to get more of us involved in this process.
I'm gonna hit something that's gonna maybe make a little bit of ruckus, but we're the only state left that has truth in sentencing, some form of it. That means day for day, no good time, no nothing. Nobody gets out early, no matter how many programs you do, no matter what. That's disheartening, and it affects your psyche in such a way to know that you're not gonna get out early, no matter what it is you do. Now, we've all committed our crimes, and we've all took ownership of our crimes. But why out of 51, all of the states that we have, that we're the only state that has to go day for day. That does, like I said again, it does a tremendous detriment to the psyche of one's person in order to motivate them. You talk about motivation, Ed, to motivate them to want to do their programs, to get down to the next level, to be able to get to the minimum security, to be able to get to that work release. So I think my biggest issue is find something to do with truth in sentencing.
Okay.
Me, on an aspect, I'm real big on ban the box. In 2016, Wisconsin became a so-called ban the box. I don't even say we're a ban the box. I believe there's about 33 states who are applying ban the box on their applications. For all that you guys don't know what ban the box is, I'm not sure if you all do or don't, is when an employer asks you on your application, have you ever been convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor? So ban the box is for the employer to not to go ahead and ask that question. The reason I say Wisconsin became a so-called ban the box is because we got away from doing it on the public sector, but on the private sector, the employer already it still has the right to ask you that question, which opens grounds for discrimination. And I was first-hand experience on that. When I came home 33 months ago, I was given the opportunity after meeting with an operational manager, and I'll say the company because I'm proud of them that they took a chance on me, which was ResCare, and I believe that ResCare helped you as well, am I right? So ResCare, I told them I wanted to be a case manager. They looked at my background. I worked for the Department of Defense. I was in the military. I was active duty in the military. I got medically retired. So they're like, you know what? The closest to the problem are those the closest to the solution are those closest to the problem. So they're like, you know what? Yes, you could be a great case manager, but you have to go apply to the staffing agency so in order for us to bring you in. So upon going and applying to the staffing agency, the interview went well. I disclosed to them that I had just gone out of incarceration. The recruiter came back just to tell me that, well, there's a long waiting list for this company, but we do have a janitorial position if you want to take it for $8 an hour. And I was like, excuse me? At that moment in time, I pretty much had to take ownership and say, I appreciate the opportunity, but no thanks. I know what I'm worth. And I remember for the first time getting out of incarceration, I went back to my car and I actually cried.
Wow.
And I looked at the mirror and said, I need to bet on myself because you know what? Sometimes society's not going to bet on me. The stigma that they have that I'm a felon goes a long way. I went back and after speaking with my wife encouraged me to go say thanks to the operational manager. After talking to the operational manager, she said, what do you mean? Thank you for the opportunity. No, hold on. I think they say you have a long waiting list. It's like, no, we don't. So she got on the phone and called the director, and they actually hired me directly through the company without having to go through a staffing agency. So they wanted me to give away almost a little bit over $20 an hour for an $8 hour job. And I still came directly. And a year later, when I started working with the state of Wisconsin, I was able to come back to the staffing agency and give them training on why they should hire justice-involved people. And the president was like, this is a prime example where we messed up. Now he's here working for the state of Wisconsin, giving us training. So I'm a big advocate that if we're going to be a so-called ban the box, we need to line up with the other 13 states that are a full-blown ban the box on the public sector and the private sector. But the other states, don't call yourself if you're a ban the box state when you only do it on the public sector. So I think we need to change that policy, and that's one of the policymakers that we're able to do, make it a full-blown ban the box state.
And that's amazing, considering I believe ban the box was introduced by one of our senators. Mm-hmm. Brother Todd?
I think a lot of the issues or challenges with hiring justice involved is the translation of what some of the crimes or the verdicts or the reports you see, what some of that stuff actually means. So I think what could be done is similar to what many organizations have done, translating, for instance, military experience and the different terminology, et cetera, as how it relates to the position at the company. Something similar could be done with the reporting of the backgrounds. Even if it's simple as categories, you want to help someone help themselves, so you don't put someone who's got experience with embezzling and fraud, you don't put them in the accounting department. So you create a couple of buckets that make sense and help put people in the right spot. But there's so much unknown. The amount of time we spend every week looking at backgrounds, trying to decipher some of the terminology or sentencing, et cetera, is painful. So simplifying that and creating some easy steps would go a long way, I think, to help more and more people hire more people, more justice-involved people.
Excellent. Todd, since we're down here by you, you've alluded to something a little earlier that I just want to reiterate and bring back. You talked about some roadblocks that's stopping people. And some of those roadblocks are things like housing and transportation. I'm blessed to have a lot of great partners with me at the Joseph Project. One of them being here today, John Deere. And I had an opportunity to sit down with them at their facility and have a discussion as it relates to housing in their area for people. And we talk about expungement and we talk about inmates and incarceration situations. It seems to be interesting to me that some communities, even if you've got the money to build the infrastructure, the housing, to bring people into that community, they fight against that. What do you think of that?
Well, it's similar to just integrating someone into the workforce. There's some unknowns of the history, but if we feel comfortable, we don't necessarily announce that someone has a background that someone else might not approve of, etc. But I guess that's a tricky one because if you provide all the resources, then you get blocked and don't want
So
the community
you're a
doesn't want
company,
people.
and you're willing to build it out, but your city government is saying, no, we don't want these. Let's be real. That's what it's really saying. We don't want these people in our community.
So we haven't experienced that as of yet, but as we continue to build out some programs, I mean, it's a potential roadblock for sure. So.
I know you got an answer, Ruben.
Housing, transportation. One of the things I've done this year was I happened to be working with UMOS and their CNC reentry program that they got going, apprenticeship. And I got asked to go speak to Landlords Association, to see how we could, just like we want a second chance in employment, we also want sometimes a second chance for housing
Yes.
to have a landlord rent to us. And sadly but true, a lot of landlords, speaking to the Landlord Association, is they base a lot of the information from CCAP. And CCAP can be real misleading if you don't know how to read it the proper way. So by it being misleading, it hampers us from being able to obtain sustainable housing. It is real hard to be able to come out of incarceration and go rent sometimes, even have landlord rent you, And when it comes to transportation, we have some good nonprofits and for-profits who are doing a lot of driver license recovery programs to assist those people, justice-involved people, to get their driver license. And we have a lot of people in Milwaukee, judges, circuit judges that are working with that as well. But the aspect of it, sometimes it's only aimed to a minority group, either you're 18 through 26. So then what happens to the elderly, those who are older than 26, or those who are older than 30, and they don't have the same opportunity. So we need to find some kind of policy where, even we educate landlords that if someone has and they're able to show you proof that they have sustainable employment and get a letter from their hiring manager or from their manager, general manager, that they got hired directly, that we don't discriminate upon them being able to rent to the justice-involved person. There's a lot of landlords laws and policies that protect us as renters as well, but sometimes we're uneducated of what there is, So The housing situation and transportation is a real touchy because there really isn't a lot out there to help us, just as involved, to get adequate housing or adequate transportation assistance.
Okay. Jamie?
It definitely is a hurdle. It was a hurdle for me releasing when I was 39. And for those of you who don't know, if you release into the community and you don't have a valid residence, which would normally be with some family, you have to go live in a transitional living place, which is like punishing you even further than what your sentence was, because when we get home, we want to be home. We want to be free. We want to be out, be able to go to work and enjoy time with our families. My situation was moved in with my dad. I had a room with my dad and his woman, and a year later, the house burned down. So the house burned down. I said, well, I guess it's time for me, because I've been working for over a year now. It's time for me to get my own place. I was petrified to go put in housing applications in my own community. So it was a blessing that I was doing good and was on the track that I am. So I had a letter from my probation officer, a letter from my supervisor, and I was able to find a rental right away. These definitely are hurdles that our community faces coming home. I don't know what the answer is. I know there are agencies out there helping. As Ruben was mentioning, some of the agencies in Milwaukee, one of the agencies and programs I work with from Employment Milwaukee is called MAP, the Motivated Apprenticeship Pathways for the Youth. But then again, it's the youth. They targeted between the age of 17 to 26. Anything older than 26 doesn't help with driver recovery or housing placement. So these are avenues that need to be looked into to help for sustainability for anybody coming home.
Okay, Brother Edward?
Very delicate subject with housing because, we all want to have our communities as safe as we can. I was fortunate enough to go back to my childhood home with my grandmom and stay with her for a while. I ended up purchasing the house right next door to that house, and, she was very excited and happy about that. Although I'm a felon, she was happy to have me because that's my grandmom, and she knew me before I was a felon. And that's my point, is that before all of us was felons, we wasn't felons. So I wasn't always a felon. There's some people that's not felons that's probably doing way more stuff than any of us up here today. And we probably would welcome them in our neighborhood a lot quicker than we would somebody that already has the felony, because we don't know. Being that I have the felony, I know better. I know that some people that don't have a felony, that don't mean they're not a felon. They just don't have it on their report card yet. They don't have the F yet. So with that being said, it's just opening your mind up to what's really going on in the world and not what we've been conditioned to believe. I believe that, yes, there is some people in prison that we all got to watch out for, but I believe there's some people that's not in prison that I'm watching out for as well.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, when you're making policy and you're making law, just consider that. Just consider that just the guys that's coming out of prison is the dangerous people. Hey, I was dangerous before I went to prison. And that was years before I went to prison. So, therefore, what I'm saying, and the only point I'm trying to make, is that when you're making law and you're making policy and you have the subject of, oh, this person is going to move in my neighborhood, hey, just think about it. There's some people already in your neighborhood.
All right. Brother Edward, I think I heard you say be careful of the guy you're watching, because it's the guy you ain't watching that's getting you. Pretty much. Gentlemen, lastly, I'd just like to ask this simple question. Can you provide any additional thoughts on what policymakers can do to make hiring former inmates more enticing to employers today?
Yes, I would say this, and I'm just not going to be up here advocating for, us guys that's come home and done well. But in my community, I've come home and I've started 3 businesses in 3 years. And I'm probably doing better than everybody that was. I have a speech that I give, and it's called Jailhouse Talk. When we're telling our loved ones about what we're going to do when we get out, They say everybody say that. That's just jailhouse talk when you're in there. So I got out, I started working hard, I started grinding, trying to build some life for myself. And the people around me, I said, you never been to prison, why you got jailhouse talk? You talking about what you gonna do? You ain't got no armed guards on the tower. You don't have a fence around you, no barbed wire, no bars. So why is every day I hear you talking about what you're gonna do as if you are locked up? But you're not locked up physically, you're just locked up mentally. You have to free yourself from the mental lockup. And what can be done is, like I said, more than anything, I believe that building up the person. Building up the person, and he can take advantage of every opportunity in front of him if he's in that right state of mind, if he's that person that he needs to be. But if he's not that person, we're just talking circumstances. Circumstances will not ever decide the fate of a man or a person. The person is going to decide his fate. So we spend all of our time building circumstances, and circumstances not building people. That's how I did for myself. I read everything I could. The guard said, you got 40 years in prison. Why you keep ordering these books? Because I wasn't worried about my circumstances. I was trying to make myself the best Ed can be right where I was at. So that's the approach that I think will help each and every one of us to just try to be a better person and help build people to be better and have more value in themselves. And then when we bring the opportunities, when we bring the jobs, when we bring the housing, they're going to be able to take advantage of it. Because right now, if I'm in the wrong state of mind, you're going to give me a job, you're going to give me housing, and I won't do nothing with it because I'm not in my right state of mind. So I think a lot of our attention not only should be on the circumstances, but definitely should be on building people.
Jamie?
Yeah, I don't know about any policies or anything. About any policies or anything that can be in effect, but I'm with Ed on this one. When I came home, I was fortunate enough to meet my fiance 11 days after I came home, and been with her ever since. She, when I was in the joint for them 11 years, I spent 2 years in segregation with a trip to Supermax for 6 months in the beginning of my incarceration. When you in the joint, you behind them walls, you treat it as a number. And, you know, we did some wrong things to earn our right to bang. Some of us banged down the door to get into prison without even knowing it, right? But once we came home, my psyche was a little, you know, wasn't all the way there yet. But I had made a commitment to myself before I came home for my children that I was going to try to be the best person that I could be. When I got out, I struggled a little bit, and I want to go back to my fiance because she really instilled some behaviors in me and taught me that I'm worth it. Slow down. Don't move so fast. You know, just take your time and realize that you are worth it, you know. She was a catalyst for me to be able to go to Res Care and take advantage of the training that they offered so I can go get some more CNC training, as paid for training. And then that ended up for me being an instructor. So we're all individuals. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. And if we can treat each other civilized and like human beings, it's going to go a long way, you know. Just treat others how you want to be treated and give somebody that second chance.
Excellent. Ruben?
I go back on, if it comes to regards as change your policy is, you know, ban the box. Make it a full-blown ban the box, Dave, on the public and private sector. The stigma that society has put on us when, you know, when you use the F word, that's why I'm a big advocate on, let's not use the F word no more. Let's say we're justice-involved people, because generations through generations through generations, you know, we've put labels on people. And that's what the F word is. It's just another label. So when you fall victim to believe that you're that label, your mentality and mind frame is, I'm a failure. I'm not going to be no good because society already thinks I'm no good. But if you challenge that thought, one of the programs, workshops that I do is called Bet on Yourself. When you challenge that thought and you tell people, you know, you're not a felon. You caught a felony, but you're not a felon. You're a justice-involved person. Let's challenge that mindset and build that self-esteem, because once you build that self-esteem, you're able to be productive. You're able to not fall victim to the labelizing that this country or certain people put on you. And you're able to be productive, and you say, you know what? I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to believe in me. I'm going to go out here and be the best man I can be, because that's who I am. You know, before I caught this felony, I was probably productive. I mean, I worked for the Department of Defense before I caught my felony. I was an officer, processor, supervisor, pretty much, in Milwaukee. I had a well-established career, but nevertheless, I made mistakes. I knew I was making the mistakes, but that didn't dictate who I am as a man. That doesn't dictate who I am as a person now. 33 months out of incarceration, if I would allow society to say that I wasn't going to be nobody and fell victim to the labelizing that they said I was as a felon, a failure, I don't know what I would have been right now. But now I'm a successful business owner. I opened my own LLC. I'm CEO of a leverage staffing. I've been able to not only become something of myself, but be able to educate and assist those people that walk through the path that I've walked through, and tell them, bet on yourself. Don't fall victim to that stigma that society will put on you. Be something productive, because you are worth someone. You are someone. You are an individual. You're not the F word. You are a person out here. So, you know, whenever I challenge you to, whenever you think you can't do something, I can doesn't assist. It is an excuse we tell ourselves to not reach your true potential. So say you can do it, because you will do it. So that would be my thing, pretty much change that policy on ban the box and make it a full-blown ban the box.
Brother Todd?
I think what could be done, it's so much more than just a job. So whether it's incentives or something else that helps extend support past just providing a job, and whether it's subsidy through finding some sort of corporate housing, or partnering on a housing so that another entity is on the lease as opposed to the justice involved. I'm going to use that term a lot now, so I've got quite an education in the last half hour, so I appreciate it, guys. But it really, I think, it's incumbent of all of us in society as well, just to do what we can to help make the integration back as easy as possible.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, I believe the scripture says I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. What I heard here today, and he helped me out and make sure I heard this, irregardless to what policies are changed, what happens, regardless to whether we've been incarcerated behind bars or incarcerated in our mind, we have the onus on ourselves. We can do anything we put our heart and mind to. We can do anything we put our soul to, whether it be becoming a career employee, whether it becomes being an entrepreneur. We can do it if we want to. We just got to break ourselves outside the bars. Thank you all for hearing us on today. Please give them a round of applause.